Hey, it's James Follows Rights and Resources, hashtag how I got cussy. So let me talk here about a very common dilemma, and it's a common obstacle to even get going on your case or anybody's case, and that's how to set a hearing or get in front of the court. There's a couple different ways to approach this, and I've actually gotten this question recently. There's a guy on. Well, let me first say this. So there's a guy on YouTube. He said he kept going to the courthouse, and they kept saying, we can't give you legal advice, so we're not going to tell you how to set a hearing or get into court. So this guy tells me this complaint about how he can't get answers, and I'm a guy who has answers, and he's telling me in the comments I can't get answers, but he doesn't reach out to me to get some help. But I'm going to go ahead and answer this because there's other guys, who have paid for consults, and we talked about it, and there's been a bunch of inquiries about it. If you go to the courthouse and you talk to the clerk and they say, well, we can't give you legal advice, we can't tell you that. The clerks are stupid. They'll give legal advice when you're not asking for it, and they'll give you bad legal advice. And then when you really need something like, where's the information on starting a motion now? They can't really tell you technically how do you do it step by step and let me show you. That's crossing the line into legal advice. But what they can do is they can point to you online where the actual rules are or the procedures so you can go look at it and read yourself. Most states have, like if you Google King County local rules, where I am, there's I think it's 80 pages or something like that of rules for different types of motions for different types of proceedings. So it's overwhelming to have to sift through the rules, even if you know where the rules are, and trying to find what they are. So the clerks are such idiots, they don't even tell you, or even in the family law facilitators, they don't even tell you, oh, well, just go look at the rules online, you'll have to figure it out yourself. This is actually the first thing one of my mentors told me. He showed me the rule book, and he showed me where to find the rules on motions and the formatting and everything like that. So if you go to the courthouse and you're lost and you're asking them questions and they say, well, we can't give you legal advice, say, can you just tell me and point to the legal authority for that or the rule on that so I can go look at it myself? Because it's out there somewhere. The attorneys have to follow some kind of instruction. You sign up for a soccer team or a football team or whatever, and, if there's a debate about the rules or somebody doesn't know the rules, you go to the rule book. There's a rule book. There's a book on traffic. There's a book on, there's laws, and there's books and business practices on insider trading. So there's rules everywhere for everything. So it's not like it's a big covert secret that they can't tell you. It's just they're worried about crossing the line. And so if you go to the courthouse, ask a question, they can't give you an answer, say, can you just point to me where the rules are, where the law is, or where the legal authority is on that? They say, well, I don't know. Then how do you know anything? What are you even doing here? So generally, the states follow the format and the numbering system of the federal court rules. The federal courts are for the federal government nationwide, and they have federal court rules that cover every state because it's the U.S. district courts. Okay, so the federal government has their nationwide court system, and then they have an appellate process, which eventually ends up in the U.S. Supreme Court, just like any state court. But the federal courts have their separate court system, and they have their rules for civil procedures. When you sue somebody in civil court for, I don't know, a cop violating your constitutional rights or a discrimination lawsuit or something like that, you might go to the federal courts for that and have a civil lawsuit. Well, you're in civil court. You're in a part of civil court. Civil court does restraining orders, landlord-tenant law, lawsuits for malpractice, and family court is one subsection of civil court. So basically the courts have civil court and criminal court. That's everything in court, in the court system. And under civil court, then you have different strands of it. Criminal court, I think it's kind of simple, but there's different branches of the civil court. So, the civil court of your state, Texas, California, Washington, their rule system might look almost exactly like the federal court rules. And the federal court rules of civil procedure, this is where everybody should be looking anyway. I have a video on the 4 basic things you need to know. You need to know the rules, the law, case law, and the court forms. The rules are for your state. They have rules for the entire state, and each county has specific rules for your county building, because in your county, it might be floor number 4 where the clerk is, and they'll say file stuff on the 4th floor in the clerk's office. Well, in Washington, King County, and Seattle will say file stuff with the clerk on the 6th floor. In Walla Walla County, in the bottom right corner of Washington, they might only have 1 floor at the courthouse, so everything's on the 1st floor. So that being said, most states follow the civil rules of the federal court. And Civil Rule 7 governs motions. Civil Rule 5 governs service of pleadings. So if you type your state court civil rules of procedure and you look down and see if they have a numbering system, that 5 is service, 7 is motions and pleadings, Civil Rule 11 is signatures, Civil Rule 59 is motions for reconsideration, then you have the same numbering system. And Civil Rule 7 is the rule on motions. Civil Rule 6 is usually the rule on timing, like it tells you how to read a rule and count stuff. If the rule says, hey, you got to serve somebody 14 days before hearing, Civil Rule 6 tells you how to count that. You start from today, and tomorrow is day number 1, number 2, and number 3. So they have rules for like every little anal thing. So you want to know in your state what the state civil rules are. Now, in California, you have the Code of Civil Procedure. I think that's the same thing in New York. So some of them tie their civil rules of procedure into the code or to the law. So that could be confusing. But if you don't have the same corresponding Civil Rule 7, just like the federal court, your state court has you Google Oregon Civil Rules of Procedure, and then you look at Civil Rule 7, and it doesn't say motions that are Civil Rule 7, then you're just going to have to look for motions. You're just going to have to look harder. And then each county has county rules. Like, here's an example. Maybe I should show you guys, but if you just Google, here's an example I know off the top of my head. So give this a try. Type in Washington courts and click on the Rules tab. After you click on the Rules tab, under State Court Rules, click on Rules for Superior Court, and then click on CR, and then you'll see Civil Rule 7 on motions. Okay, that's the state rule. It's really vague, and it's about a paragraph. Now, if you go back out and you look under local rules, and you click on, I think local rules, Superior Court, and then you click on that, then you can click any of Washington's counties. And I would advise just go ahead and click on King. It'll take you to the website that has King County local rules. And if you scroll down and you look under CR7 for the county rules, they add to the state rule and give you a whole bunch of more detail. So I'm giving you an example that I know off the top of my head, so you can kind of get a pattern of what to look for. You have a statewide rule, which is sometimes really vague and short. Then you have a local county rule on motions, and it's usually the same corresponding number, and they'll add a whole bunch of detail, like file it on this day, confirm the hearing, or they throw it out, contact the judge, stuff like that. Or some states, each judge has a standing order for how they conduct proceedings. Okay? And if you don't have magistrates or commissioners or lower level judges, you can usually contact the judicial assistant for your assigned judge and say, when is the judge available for a hearing? And then can you also tell me where to find his rules for the court or the rules for the court? So hopefully that gives you guys some direction to do that. There's a lot more detail that can go through there. And if you get a consult with me, we can go over that stuff in detail and double check it in your county or in your local